So Joe Manchin is thinking about switching parties to become an independent, and I'm for it. Does that seem odd for a Democrat to say? Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are the two senators I've labeled as the Democrats' problem children because they've caused so much trouble for us. Ironically, were it not for Kyrsten Sinema, we probably would have actually had more progressive taxation and more pro-labor legislation. We might have even been able to pass the Voting Reform Act. Sinema, for her part, though, has made it clear that she does not favor higher taxes, especially on the wealthy. And Manchin, being from coal country, West Virginia, has been, let's say, challenging on some environmental issues. But in my view, Kyrsten Sinema is worse. And I'm not just saying this because she's a woman. Sinema comes from Arizona, a closely divided state that other Democrats, other than herself, could have won. In fact, other Democrats have won there since she was elected. What's more is the other Democrats from Arizona tend to strike a more progressive posture. And Sinema was at least partially elected because of the fact that she had this history of being a green activist, making her somebody people on the left were especially enthusiastic about. But as it turns out, Sinema has largely been a whore for the hedge fund managers of Wall Street, and her move to become an independent was something completely disingenuous, really intended to kind of create a situation where the Democrats were afraid to put up their own candidate in that race for fear that it would split the Democratic vote and enable the Republican to win in Arizona. Manchin, on the other hand, is a whole different animal. He's a lifelong Democrat who actually spoke at the Democratic Convention a number of times. Despite the fact that he's very wealthy, he's been an advocate for higher taxes on the wealthy, for pro-labor legislation, and he was actually the guy who helped get the Inflation Reduction Act done, which despite its name is largely a climate bill. While many on the left have torn their hair out over Manchin's intransigence, they have to understand, unlike Kyrsten Sinema, who represents a state that a Democrat could win, Joe Manchin represents one of the states won by Donald Trump by the largest margin of any state in the country. Manchin is truly an aberration, a proud Democrat in a state where the Democratic label has become toxic. In Manchin's case, switching to being an independent might be the only way that the Democrats can hold on to that seat. Let me explain. You have to understand, frequently when an independent is elected to the Senate, they will then caucus with one party or the other. And in fact, we have a couple of independents who caucused with the Democrats, one being Bernie Sanders, the second being the aforementioned Kyrsten Sinema, and the third being Angus King from Vermont. As a result, despite the fact that they're elected as independents, they still make up part of the numbers necessary for the Democrats to be able to maintain the leadership of the chamber. Manchin this year faces probably one of the toughest re-election campaigns of any U.S. senator, aside from the aforementioned Kyrsten Sinema, who's being challenged by both Democrats and Republicans and is widely hated in Arizona at this point. Manchin, though, generally speaking, continues to be well-liked. But the only chance he has of overcoming the negativity that would be associated with the Democratic label in a state like West Virginia is to demonstrate his independence, essentially by poking the party in the eye. That's why he's periodically done that, although ultimately he's been a critical piece in the Democrats' ability to pass legislation. So my hope is that he does become an independent and runs for re-election in the Senate. Because the other alternative at this point, aside from him not running, in which case the West Virginia seat would just inevitably be written over to the Republicans, is for him to run for president. Now, he would not run for president against Joe Biden as a Democrat, mind you. He would run on this ridiculous No Labels Party ticket that's being put together by Joe Lieberman, former Democratic U.S. Senator, the running mate to Al Gore, and another one of the Democrats' problem children. Lieberman actually made his mark by being elected in Connecticut back when I was in college, defeating the much more liberal Republican Lowell Weicker. Lieberman, though, is putting together this national third-party moderate ticket. But isn't it funny that that ticket is almost exclusively funded by far-right supporters? Why is that? Because the best chance that Donald Trump has of being elected to the presidency in this upcoming election is for some quasi-Democrats to run, or quasi-Republican who siphons off just enough votes from Joe Biden among people who don't like Donald Trump, also don't really like Joe Biden, but if it were a dual choice between Biden and Trump, would vote for Biden. Polling has shown that there's a pretty significant group of people with those views. And if some third-party ticket can take enough of them away from Biden, then Trump's hardcore support might be enough to deliver him the presidency. Thus why big-time conservatives are supporting this no-labels ticket. Ironically, Manchin would be the ideal guy to be the nominee of a no-labels ticket. And he actually went to New Hampshire and spoke at an event put together by No Labels, coyly insinuating that he hadn't yet ruled out running for president. My guess is, again, he's not really interested in running for president. He wants to run for re-election to the Senate, but he knows how politically important it is for him in West Virginia to maintain his independence and kind of continue to poke Democrats in the eye. If he doesn't do that, then West Virginia will inevitably return to its true form, which is simply to elect Republicans. And not just any Republicans, but right-wing Republicans. So in an act of irony, I actually support Joe Manchin becoming an independent and running for re-election to the Senate. And in fact, there are a couple other senators who might want to consider it as well. One example of that would be Jon Tester, the senator from Montana. Montana, like West Virginia, is another place that has become hardcore Republican. And the Republicans have already recruited a strong candidate to run against him. Tim Sheehy, a former Navy SEAL and CEO of an aerospace company. Given the deep red nature of Montana, running as an independent might actually help Tester. So despite the fact that Sinema has become an independent, giving the whole move to being an independent a bad name, it might not be a bad idea for Joe Manchin and some other Democrats in tough states to consider doing the same thing. Well, if you want to see another video where I talk about the fact that some early special election results have actually shown some good news for Democrats, check out this video over here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.